It took me a while to figure out which translation of the Divine Comedy I wanted to read. I eventually went with the Mandelbaum translation, and you see here before me the Everyman's Library Edition. With this video, I want to help you decide if this translation would suit you, and so we will be reading Canto I together with the footnotes as well. In this way, I want to give you an honest reading experience, so get yourself something to drink and we will dive right into it. Canto I. The voyager narrator stray by night in a dark forest. Morning in the sunlit hill. Three beasts that impede his ascent. The encounter with Virgil, who offers his guidance and an alternative path through two of the three realms the voyager must visit. When I had journeyed half of our life's way, I found myself within a shadowed forest, for I had lost the path that does not stray. Footnote: half of our life's way, midway along the road of the human lifespan of 70 years, Psalms. Dante's journey through the afterlife is set in 1300, his own 35th year. In the middle of my days, I shall go to the gates of hell. Isaiah. Footnote: a shadowed forest, a realistic image of the darkness and tangle of the world in which Dante has lost the path to truth and goodness. It is hard to speak of what it was, that savage forest, dense and difficult, which even in recall renews my fear. Footnote: in recall, in remembering what occurred. In the fiction of the poem, Dante, the I, is both a traveler through the afterlife in 1300 and a poet who later, after his return to this life, describes his journey from memory. So bitter, death is hardly more severe. But to retell the good discovered there, I'll also tell the other things I saw. I cannot clearly say how I had entered the wood. I was so full of sleep just at the point where I abandoned the true path. Footnote: sleep, an image of torpor, the loss of intellectual, moral, and spiritual awareness. But when I'd reached the bottom of a hill, it rose along the boundary of the valley that had harassed my heart with so much fear. I looked on high and saw its shoulders clothed already by the rays of that same planet which serves to lead men straight along all roads. Footnote: that same planet, the Sun, the fourth of the planets revolving around the Earth in Ptolemaic astronomy. Often used as a symbol of God and divine light and grace, here it represents guidance from above along the true upward path, the hill. At this my fear was somewhat quieted, for through the night of sorrow I had spent, the lake within my heart felt terror present. And just as he who, with exhausted breath, having escaped from sea to shore, turns back to watch the dangerous waters he had quit, so did my spirit, still a fugitive, turn back to look at the pass that never has let any man survive. Footnote: the pass, the place of mortal danger. I let my tired body rest a while. Moving again, I tried the lonely slope. My firm foot always was the one below. And almost where the hillside starts to rise, look there, a leopard, very quick and lithe, a leopard covered with a spotted hide. Footnote: my firm foot, the lower foot taking Dante's weight in the steep ascent, sometimes interpreted symbolically as his intellect as opposed to his weaker faculty, his will. Footnote: a leopard, usually interpreted as a symbol of lust. The three beasts which attack Dante are the same as those sent to punish the sinful leaders of the people, Jeremiah. He did not disappear from sight, but stayed. Indeed, he so impeded my ascent that I had often to turn back again. The time was the beginning of the morning. The sun was rising now in fellowship with the same stars that had escorted it, when divine love first moved those things of beauty, so that the hour and the gentle season gave me good cause for hopefulness on seeing that beast before me with his speckled skin. but hope was hardly able to prevent the fear I felt when I beheld a lion. Footnote: the same stars. Aries, the sign of the zodiac in which the sun rises in springtime, the time of the year in which God created the world in the beginning. The start of the poems, set on a spring morning in 1300, may be dated either to the day before Good Friday, 8 April, or to 25 March, the traditional anniversary of the creation of the world, the incarnation, the conception of Christ as God and man, and the crucifixion of Christ, and also the first day of the centenary year in the Florentine calendar. Footnote: a lion, usually interpreted as a symbol of pride. His head held high and ravenous with hunger. Even the air around him seemed to shudder. This lion seemed to make his way against me. And then a she-wolf showed herself. She seemed to carry every craving in her leanness. She had already brought despair to many. Footnote: a she-wolf, a symbol of avarice, and particularly avarice in the church, since a statue of the she-wolf which suckled Rome's founders, Romulus and Remus, then stood outside the papal palace of the Lateran in Rome. For Dante, greed for money, land, power, or authority was the enemy of love and justice, and the main cause of corruption in the church and in society as a whole. For cupidity is the root of all evils. Timothy. The very sight of her so weighted me with fearfulness that I abandoned hope of ever climbing up that mountain slope. Even as he who glories while he gains will, when the time has come to tally loss, lament with every thought and turn despondent, so was I when I faced that restless beast, which, even as she stalked me, step by step, had thrust me back to where the sun is speechless. Footnote: he who glories, the obsessive profiteer and miser, faced by the moment, above all, of death, when he must leave all his possessions behind. While I retreated down to lower ground, before my eyes there suddenly appeared one who seemed faint because of the long silence. Footnote: one who seemed faint. Virgil, the Rhone poet, whose voice is faint because of the many centuries between him and Dante. Footnote: a shade, the disembodied soul of a dead person, in Latin umbra, shade. In Dante's afterlife, the immortal human soul has been separated from matter, the body, by death, but it retains its appearance by giving its form to the air around it. When I saw him in that vast wilderness, "Have pity on me," were the words I cried. "Whatever you may be, a shade, a man." He answered me, "Not man, I once was man. Both of my parents came from Lombardy, and both claimed Mantua as native city." Footnote: Lombardy, northern Italy, including Mantua, near where Virgil was born. And I was born, though late, sub Julio, and lived in Rome under the good Augustus, the season of the false and lying gods. Footnote: sub Julio, during the lifetime of Julius Caesar, who for Dante had been the first Roman emperor. Footnote: Augustus, the second Roman emperor, from 27 BC to AD 14. In Dante's scheme of history, while God's plan for the spiritual salvation of the human race was being fulfilled by the Jews in Israel, he was also working through the Romans to create the empire, world government by a single monarch, which reached its climax during the reign of Augustus, when Christ was born as, in effect, a Roman Jew. Virgil had therefore lived at the zenith of pre-Christian civilization and Rome's imperial destiny, but he had died just before the era of unassisted human reason, natural ethics, and the worship of the pagan gods had been superseded by the era of divine revelation, redemption through Christ, and the religion of the one true God. Dante's Virgil is his guide mainly within the sphere of rational inquiry, but he is also, above all, the soul of the master poet whose epic poem, the Aeneid, had celebrated the origin of the Roman Empire and the civic and moral values of Augustan Rome. I was a poet, and I sang the righteous son of Anchises, who had come from Troy when flames destroyed the pride of Ilium. But why do you return to wretchedness? Why not climb up the mountain of delight, the origin and cause of every joy? Footnote, son of Anchises, Aeneas. Virgil's Aeneid tells us, after the Greeks had captured the city of Troy and set it on fire, the Trojan prince Aeneas escaped and traveled to Latium in central Italy, where he established a colony whose descendants founded Rome. Footnote, Ilium. Troy, so called from one of its citadels and often presented as a proud city. And are you then that Virgil, you the fountain that freely pours so rich a stream of speech? I answered him with shame upon my brow. O light and honor of all other poets, may my long study and the intense love that made me search your volume serve me now. You are my master and my author, you, the only one from whom my writing drew the noble style for which I have been honored. You see the beast that made me turn aside. Help me, O famous sage, to stand against her, for she has made my blood and pulses shudder. It is another path that you must take, he answered, when he saw my tearfulness. If you would leave this savage wilderness, the beast that is the cause of your outcry allows no man to pass along her track, but blocks him even to the point of death. Her nature is so squalid, so malicious, that she can never sate her greedy will. When she has fed, she is hungrier than ever. She mates with many living souls, and shall yet mate with many more, until the greyhound arrives, inflicting painful death on her. Footnote, the greyhound, a person or movement that will defeat the she-wolf of avarice. Medieval prophecy often encoded its predictions by using animal imagery. That hound will never feed on land or pewter, but find his fare in wisdom, love, and virtue. His place of birth shall be between two felts. Footnote, pewter, money. He will restore low-lying Italy, for which the maid Camilla died of wounds, and Nisus, Turnus, and Euryalus. Footnote, between two felts. An enigmatic phrase defining the origin of territory of the future deliverer. It has been interpreted as meaning rough clothing, poverty, the region of northern Italy between Feltre and Montefeltro, the whole world from the west to the Mongol Empire in the east, the felt-lined balloting urns used in elections, Dante's birth sign, Gemini, his reforming poem, and so on. The greyhound has been identified as a future good pope who would fulfill St. Francis of Assisi's ideal of poverty in the church, or more frequently with Dante's future patron, Can Grande della Scala, Lord of Verona, or the Emperor Henry VII, who was in Italy in 1310 until 13. More probably, the prophecies spoken by Virgil and set in a centenary year should be seen rather as expressing an indefinite millenarian desire for the coming of a virtuous Roman emperor, free from greed, who would re-establish peace, justice, and law in Italy and would reform both world governments, the temporal, the empire, and the spiritual, the church, from Rome. Footnote, Camilla, Nisus, Turnus, Euryalus. Two Italic tribal leaders, Camilla and Turnus, and two Trojan soldiers who were all killed during Aeneas' campaign in Latium. Their names summarize the last books of Virgil's Aeneid and the bloodshed which, providentially, was to lead to the founding of Rome. And he will hunt that beast through every city until he thrusts her back again to hell, from which she was first sent above by envy. Therefore, I think and judge it best for you to follow me, and I shall guide you, taking you from this place through an eternal place, where you shall hear the howls of desperation and see the ancient spirits in their pain, as each of them laments his second death. And you shall see those souls who are content within the fire, for they hope to reach, whenever that may be, the blessed people. Footnote, an eternal place, hell. Footnote, second death, damnation of the soul. Footnote, the fire, the punishments of purgatory, where the souls accept their temporary sufferings as the necessary way to heaven. Footnote: the blessed people, the souls in paradise. If you would then ascend as high as these, a soul more worthy than I am will guide you. I'll leave you in her care when I depart, because that emperor who reigns above, since I have been rebellious to his law, will not allow me entry to his city. Footnote: a soul more worthy than I am. Beatrice. Footnote: the emperor, God. Footnote: rebellious to his law. He governs everywhere, but rules from there. There is his city, his high capital. O happy those he chooses to be there. And I replied, O poet, by that God whom you had never come to know, I beg you, that I may flee this evil and worse evils, to lead me to the place of which you spoke, that I may see the gateway of St. Peter, and those whom you describe as sorrowful. Then he set out, and I moved on behind him. Footnote: the gateway of St. Peter, the entrance to paradise, guarded by St. Peter, the leader of Christ's apostles.